Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Harris, and I'm Director of Customer Success with Yotascale. And what I'm going to talk to you about here in this demonstration is our onboarding experience. And this goes from connecting your accounts into Yotascale, how do we collect the data, and then moves into how do we get a tenant set up so that you can take advantage of some of the capabilities that Yotascale has. Some of the features that we're going to talk about in this demo are tag management. So how do we help improve your allocation by actually writing back to tagging into cloud providers themselves, as well as how do we this business hierarchy and understand cost in these different ways that a business might talk about it, whether that's team-based cost, it's service-based cost, or even your own customer-based cost. Switch over here to our Yotascale dashboard. And this is going to give you, this is the Yotascale dashboard. So when I log into the application and I'm VP of engineering here at Acme Tech, I'm able to see a quick visibility into what's going on in my infrastructure right now in regards to cost. The way that we get to this, and for Acme Tech, they have a sort of a traditional enterprise. So they've got multiple business units, and this is taking a look at that hierarchy. This is sort of the end result of the onboarding process. And I'll walk backwards from how we got here. Each of those business units is made up of a team of engineers, or multiple teams of engineers, and each of those teams is responsible for multiple services. So as an individual here at Acme Tech, I can look at cost at any of these aggregations. And for Acme Tech in particular, they're really only tagging the resources. The key tags that they need are team and service ID. So as I flip over here to my tagging module, I can see that team and system ID, these are the tags that we've marked as mandatory at Acme Tech. As long as we have these tags on the resource, we can find the right service or right application to allocate this to. And we can map up from those to which team does that service belong to, what teams roll up into these different business units. So from a getting started perspective, it's really important to go in with the customer and actually define what tags are relevant. There are tons of tags out there, right? It's almost a free-for-all in terms of what you can put in there in tagging. And so when Austin's talking about this 95% cost attribution, there's a mess of information out there. And almost, if you're familiar with big data problems, right, we have to clean up that bad data to help make better sense of it. And so in that effort, we can do things like identify where there are tags that these are meant to be the same thing. These are both environment, right? But one person decided they'd use a capital E, another person used a lowercase. Can get even worse when you look at white spaces or other types of misspellings that can happen, right? These are all tag keys that should be referenced if you want to get a really good cost allocation. So with this tag management, this attribute management system, we're able to take all of these different values, map them into the same categories within Yotascale, and now I can reference them by just looking for owner tag. I've also identified, here at Acme Tech, we want to use this capital T team. So I'm marking this as mandatory, and that's what I'm going to track and make sure is on my resources. Now we have another piece of this that can be very helpful as well, right? The tag keys is one aspect, but then the values suffer from the same problem. So how do we help on the value side? Well, there's a couple ways. One is just by, let's look at what's coming in. So from an environment tag perspective, we know that there's maybe 4 or 5 different environments that we expect to see in that tag value. And if we see something else, we want to know about that so that we can clean it up. From a system ID tag perspective, we've defined here that we want all lowercase alphanumeric characters, and that's the only thing that should be accepted here. So we use these regex policies to do some string matching to be able to identify where things are not tagged correctly. When we also can bring in labels from the Kubernetes side, or from EKS, ECS, or AKS, right? So at Acme Tech right now, they're an AWS shop, so we can kind of see a few of the different systems that they're using there. And we can take these labels and map them into those same categories so that we can reference them just like we would any of the AWS resource tags. This is really powerful because now we're able to tie together both that Kubernetes layer as well as the AWS resource layer. And this goes beyond what you're able to do with any cloud provider tools today. Once we've got this mapping done, we've established sort of what the important tags are, what values we're looking for, we can then come over and start building out that hierarchy. For Acme Tech, they're looking at things again in that business unit, team, application is sort of their layers of their hierarchy. And now we're getting in to see sort of under the hood, how do we actually get the resources or the costs allocated into these different entities? What we're doing is we're able to here say for the application advertise, we want to look at the application tag, the application category that we've defined here in Yotascale, and we're looking for a certain string, this AI automation workbench. That tells us it belongs to the advertised application. Now, the challenge is we've got a lot of messy values out there, so we're actually able to use functions within this definition to clean up the strings a bit. So here we're doing a regex replace, removing all of the uppercase and white space characters from that application tag. Not uppercase, but removing any non-alphanumeric characters. And then we actually lowercase the entire string, and then we do our string comparison. So this helps us get better accuracy from the tags that are already out there. So sort of a two-pronged approach, clean up the mess that's there. And then with the tag tool, we're actually able to come in and tell you what is not tagged to that policy. Give this a minute here. And then we're able to actually write tags back to the cloud providers. So in this case, what we can do, just as an example, is let's say I see here that we've got about 3,800 of our resources that don't have the team tag. I can quickly see, pretty healthy tagging wise. Quite a few resources are fully tagged the way we need them to be, but we still have some that are not. So let's go take a look at some of these here. We look at, just as an example, team tags missing. I can then see, okay, yep, for system ID Tink, I'm familiar with that. That's actually my team. So I'm going to come down. I can identify these about 500 resources. And with a few clicks, I'm able to actually add that team tag to these. So I want to add the team tag there. And then this is Jeff's team. I'd go ahead and submit this. And this would actually push an API call back to AWS, applying the tag at the AWS layer, allowing me to now allocate these resources appropriately within that hierarchy. Now, this can also be set up as an auto tagging rule. So I could save this search, go ahead and call it, Jeff's team. And as I go over here to my auto tagging rules, I'm now able to create a new policy where when I find using that same search criteria, I can add a new tag. I can go ahead and say, I want to add the team tag, Jeff's team, and I can create this policy. This is now going to execute those API calls, and it's going to continue to execute those API calls over time as more resources come in that are mistagged. So this is one of the avenues that our customers have available to them to actually write back tags to AWS, all in an effort to help improve the allocation so that we can get to these types of views where I can navigate, traverse this hierarchy, see cost at any sort of level within that hierarchy.
Jeff, I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, Ned Belvance.
Hi, Ned.
The question I have is during the onboarding process, it's going to be difficult for an organization to write all these regular expressions properly. If you've ever, I struggle to write good regex all the time.
Yeah.
So are you providing the professional services during the onboarding to help figure all this stuff out?
We do help. Yeah, absolutely. We help get you started in terms of the onboarding process. The regex policies and guidance on setting up the rules and such, yes. Now, the more advanced customers that we have, they may have a service registry internally, where every time a new service or application is created, they enter it into their service directory. In these cases, we're actually able to have that information pushed to Yotascale via API, automatically create through script, automatically creating the hierarchy for us. That's also extremely valuable for these large organizations where change is constant, right? New services, teams change ownership. So we're able to maintain our system based on a third-party source as well. And we've had things like ServiceNow might be the home of that, or internally built service directory, the home of that, where we can then script that, and we can work with the customer to help them do that as well.
Okay, great. That makes sense.
Yeah, Ned, just to add to that real quick. So one of the key things is the assessment, like the baselining. So just seeing like how bad is my situation. Like a lot of people don't have that baseline. So I think that's helpful. The second thing is one of the things that Yotascale does is, I think I should take this off. One of the things that Yotascale does is it tracks unallocated, like on an ongoing basis. And you might have an 80-20 rule where, let's say 60% of your cost is because of 2 or 3 tags out of compliance, possibly, right? But just that information alone can be very key to focus and just create that journey for you.